love. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Being the Space. Nurse Adrienne RN here with a really special guest, somebody who I have known now for a couple years in the space of patient advocacy. Her name is Nancy Ruffner. She is a patient advocate among many, many things, like many of us, pivoted at some point in her life, made a career change, decided to be an entrepreneur. And she's one of the OGs in our industry of patient advocacy, who's really made a successful business, able to scale her business. We're going to talk a little bit about that. She is a senior aging expert, really has some knowledge nuggets about solo aging. Nancy also is a nationally known speaker. And we're going to talk about all things patient advocacy, business, living in the South. Who knows where this conversation will lead? So whether you're listening to this on your podcast provider, you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you follow, you subscribe, and you share. And please, I hope you receive some knowledge out of this, and comment and let us know what are the topics you would like. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nancy. She's going to introduce herself. And I want to just let you guys know, Nancy just shared with me that she's a little under the weather, and I would have never known. So thank you so much, Nancy. I really appreciate it. And if, anytime you need to hit the pause button for yourself and do whatever you need to do, drink some tea, please take care of yourself. All right, everybody. Here's Nancy Ruffner, patient advocate, solo aging expert, national speaker. Welcome, Nancy.
With all of that, thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think that Adrienne and I share a passion for getting the word out, not only to consumers, but other professionals, other disciplines, and also employers who have employees who need to hear our information as well. I am somebody who has been a board certified patient advocate. I've been an agency founder and owner for 10 years. Recently, moving back into sole practitioner status. And I, for many years, did boots on ground services, as well as running the agency and marketing the agency and public speaking and now I'm much more effective at trying to affect advocacy in a different way. Yes. Do I still do one-on-one? Yeah. But I speak nationally now, which helps turn heads, get the word out, provoke thought is huge. And I'm also working on, I coach a fair amount of patient advocates who are in startup or stuck or stagnant because it would behoove our industry to get the most people that we can out there helping.
Absolutely. And so you started your agency about 10 years ago. You made a pivot, and then you were actually one of the few people I know of who was able to scale up, have a team of advocates. And what was that process like? At what point did you say to yourself, okay, I'm ready to bring some other people in, contractors, I don't know how you structured it, just assuming contractors, to reach more people and free up my time to do what?
Well, it was an interesting time, mid 2013, when I decided to leave an EAP, Employee Assistance Program. I was your friendly voice under the headset, cross-trained on multiple teams, but my favorites were elder care and the legal team, doing intakes. And it was intake, assessment, research, referral, bye-bye. And I never got any closure. I decided that I wanted to journey with people a little bit more, to take it more knee to knee for a bit. And in that 10-year period of time, I started out with just me, the social worker with her cape on, and a knack for this and that, and somebody who would push that envelope. Over time, I had to reach back and get some other of my professional peers that I thought were as gutsy or top notch or entrepreneurial as I, and brought them into the fold. For a while, we got what I think maybe was a little bit too big for me to manage and still do the patient advocacy, because I have to carry cases. That's what love is, and that's where the stories come from. And the stories are what propel the need, normalizes the conversation, attracts people to not only join our industry, but look at this industry. And I think that that's part of the change process. So for me, found my sweet spot in terms of size and effectiveness within a slightly smaller agency that would allow me to go on to perfect my speaking skills.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. Oh, we have a little, it's a little glitchy. I know we're freezing up a little bit. If you guys hear a little bit of pause, bear with us. I think now, oh, I've got a little bit better internet connection. Having a little trouble here with my internet. I'm not sure why. So sorry about that, everyone. So that's yeah, that's an interesting right pathway, right? So you left because you made a change also because you wanted to see the outcome. You wanted to really follow people. And for folks who don't know, private patient advocates are cash paid. We work with clients who are dealing with the health issues or needs. Aging might be aging needs or somehow related needs. Family members, it could be themselves. It's often parents, elderly parents. Again, we're in a time period where people are living longer, right? And the sandwich generation, if you don't know what that term is, those are people who have kids they're still raising, and then they're now taking care of their parents or elders. And we know, right, if you're part of the, Gen Z or upcoming alpha, that,
Yeah.
people are staying at home longer. People are not launching and moving out at 16 like I did in 1984, right? While I was in high school. That's just, people are staying. My friends, my generation, I'm seeing everybody with kids staying or that have stayed till they're in their 20s, well into their 20s. And now they're taking care of, so they're not even having that break of great, my kids are out of the house at 18 and boom, boom, boom. I get a few good years until I need to take care of my parents. And it's all kind of colliding right now. And then plus a lot of people in my generation waited till longer to have kids, waited till older. So I see that there's a big need for people that are in that sandwich generation that are now retired. I mean, I have a good friend who's in her 70s and really honestly has not been able to enjoy a lot of her retirement, because and her mom's 103, right? And you of course she's going to take care of her mom. Of course, we're going to take care of our parents, our family, there's no doubt. But that navigation of it by herself as an only child also has been really difficult. So those are the things that often, when we come in as patient advocates and help, we're almost like a case manager in some ways. Some of us do clinical support, decision making. Some of us just do medical billing. If you need to navigate the medical billing system, you don't know what your health insurance is. You don't know what to pick. You don't know the difference of open enrollment. I still talk to a lot of people my age, I'm 55, or older in their early 60s. So they're approaching that Medicare age, who believe that you are automatically enrolled in Medicare, just for an example. So that right there, right? So there's all these opportunities for us to do education and help people with decision support, and also raise awareness to other bodies, right? The employers, the politicians, to the media about here's some issues going on, let's elevate this and bring attention to it. And I think, this is a growing industry. So when Nancy, started in 2013, I don't, we didn't have, there wasn't a board certification patient, there wasn't a board certification of patient advocates. That wasn't even a thought, I'm guessing, because that didn't come till what, 5 years later. Because I got mine, I was in the second group, I think in 2018. Maybe I was
Well,
in
it
the second or
took
third.
4 years for them to develop an exam. First you have to
Yeah,
have we need an exam. We need standardization. We need to elevate our industry. Then to
right.
properly format the certification exam itself, and then begin to have people sit for it nationally. Took a lot.
Yeah, so we are a small tribe of individuals trying to make a difference in the world in all these different ways in healthcare, aging, health insurance. So Nancy, so you made a switch, you pivoted again, said I'm going to divest myself of this business and I'm going to pursue something else. And I want to bring this idea up to the listeners about pivoting and adapting and honoring ourselves. It's so we hear this over and over again, do what you love, the money will follow. Yes and no, right? Hopefully what you love is tangible, right? But the bottom line is, yes, pursue what gives you joy and what is meaningful, but no, that pathway is not always going to just be immediate. Bam, I'm making 100 grand or whatever it might be, whatever your goal is. Being a business person, an solo entrepreneur is a lot of work. especially in an industry like ours where people don't have a clue what we do. We
Right.
it's like I tell people, it's not like saying, "Oh, I'm a fitness instructor." Now, I could be a fitness instructor in 50 different ways, but still people will have an idea of, okay, it's going to include diet, exercise, XYZ. I say patient advocate and people, are like, what? So now I've started saying health coach, patient navigator. I don't, it's like I'm working out these words because again, we're defining that. This is like we're the pioneers of this industry that for sure is going to grow, right? For sure.
I
So how
agree.
do you how do
We've
you
got a
see
lot of
yourself?
monikers, and it takes at least 3 paragraphs to stammer out what we do for people.
Exactly. There's no shortcut. I have talked to some really top-notch marketing folks that I've been able to get the attention of because it's healthcare and they want to help nurses. They want to, they know I'm a nurse in my background. And they've really been stumped. They're like, there is no 30-second elevator pitch for this because it's it takes a minute to explain what we do to really understand. How do you what are the kind of questions? I mean, how do we improve on this? How do we get the word out about what we do, Nancy?
Well, as somebody who has always worked with or sold intangibles, first you have to get comfortable with that. You have to be able to show value of something that's really not there. And here we are introducing our services, our product at a time of crisis when things are happening fast and people aren't thinking exactly straight. And so
Right.
emotions are high, retention or understanding can be diminished based on other stressors. And so it takes a special bird to be able um, uh, to explain to folks that I can help you. Here's how I can help you. Here's what we're going to do as we journey together. There's the support. I'm going with you. I'll do as little or as
Mhm.
much as you want me to do. I'm not here to make decisions for you. I don't touch, treat, diagnose, but help you
Mhm.
to understand so that you can make good decisions. I don't work for insurance. I don't work for hospitals or medical groups. I work for you. And that's
Mhm.
the allegiance. And it takes people a minute to think because their encounters with healthcare have well, there's no one among us who hasn't heard a healthcare debacle story or had one.
Mhm.
And so
That is for certain.
that's what we relate to.
Yeah, that's for certain. And that's, I mean, I'm a registered nurse. I, was a caretaker for both my parents at different points. Never wanted to be a nurse, never wanted anything to do with healthcare. However, I was pretty much raised from childhood to be a patient advocate. I was there advocating for my mother who had MS and was in a wheelchair, and people would speak to me over her head, or my father had cancer and passed away very quickly, but I witnessed a lot of things actually through that experience where it was just a real acute illness at a young age in the late 70s, early 80s, I guess, or 80, 81, that were so disturbing and traumatic that happened within healthcare. I will never forget them. I will never forget the sounds, the sights, and the experiences of those. And thinking right then, being, 12 years old, really, and going in and telling off a doctor, saying, get off him, stop touching him, stop doing what you're doing. And doing the same thing really with my mom. And, because autonomy is so important. And sometimes patient autonomy is, in this collision course with the superiority complex of people sometimes who work in healthcare. Not just saying it's just doctors. I didn't say just doctors,
Right.
but that shifted a little bit. But now we have kind of this hierarchy. We used to have the pay for play system in healthcare back then. Now it's all managed at this higher level. And now we've got Aetna. I don't know if you saw the lawsuit with Aetna, 300 that was it 300,000 claims they did in 1.1 seconds each through an AI that they just
Yeah.
uniformly dismissed. California's coming for them. I'm very grateful California has some very unique laws and they're able to figure out how to sue them. And this is exactly why. Yet a doctor signed off on all of those decisions
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
that weren't really made. So we're in an odd time in healthcare, especially in an industrialized nation. So if you don't think that you need a patient advocate or somebody or some knowledge or resource, whether it is hiring somebody directly or just having some resources from one of us, you're gonna be in a world of hurt, because we know the rate of injury, we know the rate of missed medical errors, and that's just in the medical world. Many of us don't even work, in that medical environment. I do clinical decision support as part of my service, but I also help people hire and interview caregivers and vet
Yeah.
caregivers, because people don't know how to do that. There's a shortage of caregivers. They don't know, how do I know who to hire? How do I know if this person is okay? What are some of the areas that you really enjoy working in, that you're now putting your energy into? I know you're doing speaking. We talked about solo aging. Let's talk about solo aging a little bit for folks, because
Oh,
there's a
yes.
hot
One of
topic.
my
Hot
favorite
topic.
topics because I are one.
Me too.
I enjoy the solo aging realm, if you will, not only because it fits me, but because it's an emerging demographic. I mean, it's over 1 in 5 of us. And as has been mentioned, we're having less children. Who's going to take care of me? Solo ager looks around and may even be part of a duo or dink, double income, no kids, but they're looking around going at their contemporaries who are having to do all these things for their family members. And oh, who's going to do that for me? And
Mhm.
so when you wake up and realize that you have some solo aging work to do, because we have to plan specially, and we especially have to plan. And
Right.
there are certain factors that we encounter that others won't, and it's hand in glove for patient advocacy, because we're the queens and kings of workarounds anyway. No matter how much the
Right.
healthcare system changes,
Mhm.
we change with it. We just keep finding ways to get it done. So I enjoy working with solo agers, not only to help with the information that you may be one, and here are your challenges, but the commonality, finding community,
Mhm.
building your team, or as some say, a microboard.
Mhm.
The best thing about being a solo ager and making medical and legal and financial decisions, that microboard, if I have an open seat, I get to fill it. I get to
Right.
choose my family. I'm not saddled with anybody. I get to choose my people, and if I don't like them, I'll
Right.
replace you.
Now
So,
explain to us that term. Explain what is a microboard, because I love that. I actually never heard that before.
well,
I
the
love it.
imagery to me, is like a seat at the conference table, or what some
Right.
people call your village or your circle of care. Yeah,
Gotcha.
you're going to have probably a general practitioner, but you may have some specialists there too. Going to have some
Mhm.
sort of a legal advisor, elder law, estate planning attorney. You're going to have a financial professional, CPA, bookkeeper. You're going to or maybe a daily money manager for when
Mhm.
the cognitive is not in place to support making your financial keeping your financial house in order. You're going to have support, whether that chair is open, or whether you've got a robust faith community, or a
Mhm.
community that you've built yourself, because community and finding friends as we are older in life is more difficult.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the loneliness epidemic is very real, and there's some very
Mhm.
real ways to combat it too. And so a lot of what we talk about is getting the word out about that. And
But
then
I
I
think
think,
also,
oh,
do
go
you
ahead.
think, I wanted to ask you really quickly, do you think, like, obviously we went through COVID, so people had exponential numbers of losses in their families, um and really that shifted a lot of family membership dynamics quite quickly. And then, now we're looking at solo agers. I'm wondering, are you seeing organizations, that like churches, that have solo aging support groups? Are you seeing like support groups, or the public facing organizations talking about this directly to consumers, and
Yes,
giving them resources? Okay,
yes.
I want to talk about that.
Part of churches and faith groups, I'd say that's a largely a yet. Maybe
Okay.
some more progressive ones. But as resources for solo agers, we're growing it as fast as we can. We're a lot farther than we were 2 years ago. The authors and the thought leaders are hard at work with their books and lectures and TED Talks and
Mhm.
appearances and guesting on podcasts and webinars. And then there are people that are just speaking to raise awareness. What is this?
Mhm.
And not only are we speaking to consumers, we're speaking to the professionals. These more than 1 in 5 are here. Let's support them.
Right.
You can help
Right.
them as a an elder law attorney, or you can help them as a financial professional, or you can help them as a patient advocate or care manager. You jockey for a seat on that table because they need
Mhm.
you out on that microboard.
Now,
And
as from a nursing perspective, I think about solo agers, and I've seen a lot of this as a nurse in the hospital where people did not have family, or
yeah,
maybe we didn't know how to reach their family and they were already incapacitated, and they had no advance directive. And advance directives, folks, are really dodgy because they do not transfer across state lines. They may or may not be respected, but again, for a lot of people who are moving around in the country, retiring to another state, remember you've got to do all that paperwork again. And then if you don't actually have it with you, there's no way for a hospital to look it up. There is, I know a couple options that are a little pricey, but so this becomes very difficult. So what do you say to people when they ask, great, I can have I've got to actually be a person of resources, have some money, right? So if I meet that threshold, I've got a lawyer, I've got my team, I've got somebody handling my finances, or I've done some estate planning on that level. But what do we say to folks about who's going to make decisions for me if and when I'm unable to, even if that's temporary? What do
yeah.
we say to those folks, Nancy?
The raging debate, well, boiling it down to the very simple questions. A lot of times people say, I have nobody to name as my emergency contact so I can move into the senior community. I don't have anyone to name as my healthcare power of attorney or proxy or representative.
Mm-hmm.
I can name a contemporary, but as I like to so often teach, which one of us is going to keep our marbles the longest? It's best not to name a contemporary. We need to find younger people in
Right.
order
Make
to
younger
carry on
friends,
that.
everybody.
Yep, yep. And so the raging debate about naming who you're designating your proxy or agent with power of attorney is a big one because the laws vary from state to state.
Mhm.
There are people for hire and entities for hire, but if finances are not strong in your corner, then there are other ways we need to go about doing this. And so
Mhm.
it's again, the kings and queens of workarounds are here to tell you what your options are along those
Mhm.
lines. And if you're very right. A lot of times people will be seen in the hospital and they are unattended, or they're
Right.
seen in the legal arena, it's unrepresented. And our
Mhm.
very own geriatric society put the unbefriended term, laid that on us.
Mhm.
I don't like that one. Can you tell?
Right.
So, there are a lot of ways that we are und, it's un
Yeah.
something. And we have
Now,
to work hard to reverse
do you see healthcare advocates, patient advocates moving into that arena of being the healthcare proxy as part of services?
that. It's a
I haven't
conflict of
personally
interest.
seen. Is
It's a
it?
conflict of interest, in my humble opinion. Now, because a lot of us are small and sole practitioners, we would have to leave the patient advocacy um, position in order to become a decision maker. So you'd have to
Mhm.
there'd be two different things. You'd have to leave one to assume the other role. Now, if we're
Right.
in a small agency or an agency that's large enough to have this person can be the agent, this person can be the advocate, then we have a good thing going on. But
Yeah.
a lot of times, and some states are very free about it, and some patient advocates are very free. I'll do either, but no, it is a conflict of interest in my humble opinion.
Gotcha. And yeah, because I've kind of wondered, been thinking about that, like, well, who do people name as their healthcare proxy? And, it's not been I haven't encountered that service or, anybody advertising that or, seen that, but it does give some food for thought about, well, who do you name? Because you also want to, because you've got, you want to have an advocate by your side, especially if you're in a hospital situation. If you are in, dealing with healthcare, I'm not going to make any guarantees. Everything here is educational. I want to just make the disclaimer. This is entertainment and educational information. We're not making any guarantees of services. But I just want to say, as a nurse being in the hospital for over a decade, the patients who had somebody at the bedside, whether it was their 15-year-old great grandson and stayed the night, or that had them, a great part of the day, some family members at the bedside, even though they were just sleeping on the couch, they, I want to say, got better care because somebody is in that room and there is a different level of accountability. And we know doctors like to round at 3 in the morning. Some specialists like to come at 5 in the morning. Doctors are busy, providers are busy, so they've got to run their office clinic. A lot of them will come in early mornings. Well, patients are medicated. Maybe they got a pain pill at 3 in the morning. No, I'm groggy in the morning, right? Oh, the family comes in. What did the doctor say? Oh, I don't remember. I didn't see the doctor. Did the doctor come? Maybe the doctor actually never went in the room. Maybe the doctor just kind of peeked through the chart, made a note, moved on, collected the money. I saw a lot of that as well. So
Yeah.
there are some very concrete, measurable advantages to having a patient advocate and also training your family how to be a patient advocate. I'm all about self
Exactly.
empowerment. How do
Yes.
we empower? How do we empower individuals, right? Because there's certainly the access point for hiring a patient advocate is a bit high, right? The threshold is a bit high, right? We're talking the top 5%,
And I
or
think,
something like
yeah,
that.
there is a cost for our services, and we got to keep the doors open for the many. And
Mhm.
but a lot of what we do is teach the family what to do, and there's a little bit of movement on that on the healthcare front too. As they begin
Mhm.
to discharge a little sooner, well, gosh, we need to teach mom how to do dad's oxygen machine.
Right. The
Yeah,
hospital is moving to the home, you guys. This is the big move. The hospital is moving to the home, and you're going to have hospitals will be an ER, an operating room, and an ICU. Everything else is going to be outpatient. This is going to be a drastic change in healthcare. Huge, huge, huge. And I keep hearing so often this conundrum of there's nowhere the person doesn't have Medicaid or the state doesn't cover long-term care. They've used all their days up. Where do they go, right? I mean, this is another huge issue that people are facing is who is going to take care of people who are unable to take care of themselves or mentally incapable.
absolutely, you're right. The community-based care is not all it's cracked up to be. There are some benefits, and then there are some cons, just like
Mhm.
any aspect of healthcare.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, it requires a lot. People are like, oh, I used to do home health, and people would always be surprised. They're like, oh, you're just coming for an hour. You're going to come twice a week. I'm like, yeah, I'm not here all day. That's going to cost you $30,000 a month for private duty care, 24/7, right? So maybe we have to start thinking out of the box about models of living, right? So for solo aging, do you see the future of people moving into housing together and
Yeah,
cohabitation?
that's a big thing. It's not only who am I going to name when I move into a senior community. There's a lot of models going on. Yes, are people living alone more in the United States is the highest in the world for people, like 30% live
Right.
alone, and it's the elders that are doing that more now. But in terms of housing models, you were already seeing a change there. I mean, haven't we gone from the 1960s where you retired and then you didn't feel well and you went to the rest home or the nursing home and then you were gone? It's a lot different than that now, and our longevity is helping as overall healthcare and life expectancy has improved. Life expectancy just took a turn and is starting to go down. Isn't that interesting? But in
Right.
terms of
Yeah.
the housing part, the Golden Girls model is alive and well. Let me tell you, there's a lot of chatter about that. Not
Hmm.
only living in close proximity, living in community. That doesn't necessarily have to mean a senior community, but having ties in the community by way of volunteer, by way of your faith group, by way of proximity, duplex,
Hmm.
shared housing, co-housing and co-householding, where you financially invest as a stakeholder in a piece of property. So there's a
like a
lot of models
TIC.
coming out, a lot of really
Yeah.
good things. And I'm proud to say that we're driving some change.
Yeah, we need to. I mean, because I think you're right. The Golden Girls model, I mean, it's also housing prices. Housing prices. There's also, one thing we would see a lot. Two things I noticed, being at the time I was actively working, was that homes that were built probably from the late 70s on, early 80s, especially townhomes, were not really ability friendly. No
Yeah.
bedroom downstairs, no full bathroom downstairs. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of patients I had who could not go live with a family member or back to their own home because they had a two-story townhome or house that had only a half bath on the first floor, no full bath, bedroom, just the design flaws. So now they're in this crisis situation. They own a
Yeah.
home. They are now, they don't have the cash, right, to just go buy a house. You can't just say, I mean, these are things that really take a lot of thought. And I always tell people, think about if you're unable to move, or just if you need crutches. I mean, having crushed my leg at 29 and been in a wheelchair, I was really happy that my college roommates and I had a ranch house that I could move around and had their help. Because again, there's a lot of reasons why somebody may have to go into a long-term care facility or rehab facility, or just be in the in between where they don't really qualify, but then they can't really go home because that doesn't work either. So now they're going to be living in the live dining room. There's no full bathroom, or there's no accessible bathroom. So I think, like, even architecture, things like that really have to change and adjust, because we're going to have this, we're we're just going to be cranking out more older people, right?
Well,
There's no end in sight. There's
that's
no end in
definitely
sight.
what's presenting. We're right in the middle of the baby boomer 14-year demographic, and we do have that 65,000, 10,000 people turning 65 every day. That's still occurring,
Every
going to
day.
keep occurring. I think the building industry is a slow turn. Um, I liken it to trying to steer a boat or a ship. You've turned the wheel, but it takes a while to get
Mhm.
for the actual vessel to move. We are
Yeah,
seeing a
developers.
return to multi-generational housing. We are seeing
Yeah.
some changes in design and redesign, all with a
Hmm.
price tag on it. All with a price tag on it. But
Right.
safety
And this
is
is
my
another.
litmus test. I've helped a lot of people, as you say. Oh, we're getting discharged. Can't go back to that tri level. Never going to go back to that
Right.
tri level. We need to liquidate that house to fill up our caregiving pocketbook and give us some options to get some housing. And so that's spawning other industries too. It's
Mhm.
some sister industries. The reverse mortgage is even more important
Yeah,
sometimes for people
that's a
nowadays. So
little scary.
yeah,
Let me see. We're a little frozen. I'm going to have to edit this part out. What? I'm going to have to reload. Let's see.
I do see.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but you're
That's the
good and
crazy
frozen.
part about this, is that it freezes. Let's see. We're going to reload. Yeah, I think I have figured this out. Okay. Oh, that had to stream. Okay, that was different.
Yes.
We're back. So we're going to have this part edited out. And if you're listening, you won't hear this part, but it popped back in. All right. So we were talking about, yeah, so we're talking about just, we got a little tangent about housing, but housing is super important, because I only see more people becoming homeless, honestly, and unhoused. And this is just going to add to the crisis. And and that just puts more and more pressure on hospitals. It puts so much pressure on hospitals to be hanging on to patients. I mean, I remember we would have patients for 6 months, 9 months, because there was nowhere to put them.
More.
The
Hmm.
level of care, because they were kind of able to walk around, take care of themselves, had no resources, not old enough, maybe 58. There's a lot that we're dealing with here. So, what do you think about in this concept? So, there's those of us who are patient advocates, right? There's just, really probably a few hundred of us who really are working doing it, of the 1,300 that are certified, plus a lot of people that aren't certified that are doing it, and that's fine.
That are doing
uh,
good work, I might add.
yeah,
Mhm.
Very good. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. Where do you think we, as a group of, as a micro industry that we are, I don't want to say we're even an industry because we're so small. Um, where do you think we should be facing our attention as far as really communicating to the public, or it might not even be the public facing, right, about the kind of services we offer and those issues, and to help people or businesses or companies, whoever it might be, or churches, understand who we are? What do you say to somebody who's brand new coming into this field?
Well, I tell them to come all the way in and sit all the way down. Because there's a lot of work to do. We not only need the nurses, the social workers, the pharmacists, the doctors, and medical billing specialists. We need everybody. We need social media to get us out there. We need to push our professional organizations, and we have several that are not
Mm-hmm.
only good for patient advocates to come together and have our community, but they need to be pushing out to the consumer more. And I'm part of driving that change. We do need to be speaking to the consumers so that they can find us. Those search by zip code directories are tremendous, as are podcasts and videos like this. They have
Mm-hmm.
tremendous reach, and so we have to be uh, carnival barkers in a way to get it all out there and get it done. Then we need people working for legislative change. Then we need
Right.
national speakers. Then we need that all important first voice on the phone that says, "This is Nancy. How can I help you?"
Right.
That's
Right.
huge. Somebody has just picked up the phone. That is huge. And so
Mm-hmm.
we need all levels of folks. We need the
Yeah.
worker bees, we need the innovators. Uh, Everyone has a seat in this
Mm-hmm.
industry.
Mm-hmm. And we haven't even gotten to the point of legislative advocacy, or on the same, or the conversation internally as a profession of what is our agenda, right? As far as I know, as far as I'm aware, because a lot of people have different ideas of what the solutions may be, and then depending on what state you're in, it may be some different solutions statewide. But I definitely advocate for people and encourage everybody. I used to be a lobbyist. I did political organizing years and years ago, and I really cannot stress enough for you, the average, the person listening to this, the individual, to get to know your state legislators. Just find out who they are. If you go in my link tree, there's a link where you can just look up all of your people, all your elected officials. Send them a letter saying, here are my top 5 issues. Find out what issues they're on, find out what committees they're on in the state or federal government, and let them know, here's what I really find important. And these are issues I'm concerned about. You would not believe how impactful that can be, especially to state level. And, if you're part of an organization, part of a church, part of an elder community, set up a meeting, whether it's virtual or live, meet that legislator, let them know. But yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, I'm a political person. We talked before this. Um, I've uh, ran political campaigns before, to that level, and if you can deliver votes and you can deliver people right to the polls, you can have an influence with somebody who's elected, right? So
Yeah.
even if you don't have the deep pockets to donate, if you can deliver votes or raise a doubt about their caring about a certain topic, and you can put them in the corner, they're going to have to come out with something. And you know what? Aging is a topic, healthcare is a topic, that is difficult to dodge. There needs to be some real answers to this. How do you
It is.
think?
And the consumer power is with this age group too. We got
Exactly. There you
we
go.
got
There
the
you go.
money and we got the votes.
Right. And
Listen
we
to
deliver
us.
the votes. We deliver the votes, right? That's the other thing. I joke with people about, you know, way back when I was a nurse doing home health, I would have a lot of elderly patients ask me, because when, again, this is nothing to do with patient advocacy, but they were on long-term pain medications. They hated them. They were constipated. They had all the effects of long-term pain management, and it wasn't working anymore. And they were asking me, "Hey, can you get me, MJ?" I'm not going to say the word, right? We all know the thing that's been legalized quite broadly in the United States, but this was way before that. And I would say, oh, and I would take note of this. Of, I want to say a third of my elderly clients would ask me about it or talk about it, or hey, what do you think as a nurse? And and I eventually realized people who are 18 to 22 aren't the ones voting. The people who actually legalize that have been older people because they see the advantage for themselves because they're the ones who've been on pain meds for 30, 40 years in narcotics. And there's, on that particular topic, there has to be an alternative. But it showed me something about, oh, people don't really realize who's voting for this, right? And here we have, a nationwide movement of that happening. But I think that if here's another issue too that I find that's very interesting is when people are in long-term care, maybe they're in senior housing or supportive housing, there's also kind of an isolation, siloing that happens from the public, right? You no longer have somebody knocking on your door. You're kind of insulated from the world a little bit. And so, for people that are patient advocates that want to reach those folks, how would you suggest that they do that? Or if they want to get in and say, hey, I want to make my services known, because I think this is an issue. And for patient advocates watching or listening, I know that there's so many people coming into this industry, but then have no idea like where to start. Like if I'm going to who are the 10 organizations, people, associations, I should reach out to in my area, right? I think that's the focused marketing, because I know you're a marketing expert. Um, I think that's an issue a lot of people need support on.
Yeah, it's true, and I get asked that a lot. It's like, what camps do I pursue? What do I go? Whose camp do I go get in?
Right? Do I go door to door?
How do I develop? And we all try everything, and it's the funniest thing. I'll say I'll say try it all because things are not going to work, and the things I thought were going to work didn't work, and then this thing over here caught on.
Can you give us some examples? Can you give us some examples?
Let's see. I just knew that my senior expo was just going to be great. I was going to set up a booth, and here 225 people are going to come by me. And this is great. So I spent all this money on merch, little giveaways and booths and decorate. And I've dedicated half a day to set up and a day to do it. And this is going to be wonderful. Unfortunately, their promotion of it and the tradition of this particular event was pretty much senior trick or treat. Come and see your vendors and get their stuff. And that was the word on the street. Oh man, if you need any sticky notes, just come to them. And so I went and had a terrible time. I was ready for substantive conversations and talking about what mattered to people, and of course selling that intangible, what am I, and letting them see what am I, and that did not happen, and I was upset. Didn't do it the second year. Third year, I said, let's go back, let's try it again. And my very first person that came up to my booth that morning said, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, all right, we're going to talk. And he said, who here has the bags? Because as soon as I get a bag, then I can come back and get your stuff.
Right. I love that you said senior trick or treat.
And it was because it had become that, word on the street. That's what it was. Did some real connections happen there? Yes, for some. I saw a transaction there that I'll never forget, where a financial professional, to a friend and colleague, 3 booths down, got on his knee to talk to a lady who was seated on her rollator, and they had a frank and in the moment conversation right there, and people were passing by his booth. He did not care. He was talking to that person, and I'll never forget that, and I'll never forget that of him. Right. I would want him because he listened to me, and he wasn't just there glad handing and being there for the money and the hayas. So and then there's been things that have worked for me. Speaking works because I want to. Well, it's in keeping with my value to educate the public. Let's turn heads. Let's provoke thought. What'd she say? Or better write this down. Or I'm going to find that website and get. You've got a resource sheet. May I have one? And
Mhm.
so it's important and to build out my social media in such a way. Right now, I do something bi-weekly vlog, and by that I mean I have an email community which I invite anyone on here to join via my website, nancyruffner.com. And I do a blog, send it out in an email, and you can watch the blog or you can click over to the website and listen to the podcast, or you can
Mhm.
read it as a traditional. So, however, whenever you want to consume it, you can. And I
That's great.
usually will add an element of education and always about. I don't stay in the problem long. I go to solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find, I mean, when I started, I thought, and now I started my business in a new state where I don't know a single person, right? Versus staying where I was, where I knew tons of doctors, would have had no problem getting clients. I was near Santa Barbara, very wealthy area. I move across country and it's daunting. So I feel like I'm actually a lab. I'm running a lab on my business of how do you start a business if you're just dropped in the middle of nowhere and you know not a single person, right? And so I've, because then there's 24 hours in a day. We're entrepreneurs, we're solo entrepreneurs. We're not coming in with hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on ads on Facebook and online.
Right.
Um, and I thought, am I supposed to go door to door to doctors' offices? Is that still happening? It's post
Doesn't work.
COVID. That doesn't, I'm like, that doesn't even seem like the model, right? I thought about that and I'm like, because I want to, I want to plant a word with everybody who's in business, whether you are a patient advocate or whether you are an entrepreneur of any kind. Think about who are your multipliers. You've got to find the multipliers. Now, that could be a church, it could be a senior center, that is opening up a higher end kind of assisted living person. I cannot tell you how important it is to leverage LinkedIn. Leverage LinkedIn. Put your resources into LinkedIn, Facebook, to a certain degree. Facebook, it's still very valuable in Reels,
Yeah.
but LinkedIn and TikTok, but really YouTube and LinkedIn. If you do two things, I would say YouTube and LinkedIn, honestly, because then you're creating content that is a search engine, right? So this is being recorded and it's on a search engine, right? It'll go onto YouTube as one of the places. So what I have found is my multipliers, and I found this really by accident through a conversation with my own financial planner, are financial planners, estate lawyers, elder lawyers, attorneys, even just really any attorney, because they're going to know people. Either they're a corporate attorney, corporate attorneys also very good because who do they work with? They work with CEOs, they work with the C-suite, right? People who need their time, because part of what we do is we sell time. And I don't see enough advocates getting that message across about, because I tell people I sell you back your time, because that's the thing I would have wanted when I was making decisions for my mom and racing back and forth across the country and stalling out my career, especially as women, right? We tend to be the caretakers or decision makers. So I think so. What are your thoughts about that? About multipliers within the industry, or who, even from the consumer, that makes it the pivot point for the consumer, right? Like I'm in my financial planners talking to me about this thing. I'm a patient advocate. I never even thought about that. But yeah, if I'm spending time on caregivers and I'm, on healthcare that I don't need to be, or not being efficient, that's less money I have to invest, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
real estate agents, there's another one. So what are
That
your
is
thoughts?
another multiplier. I think for me, because I'm in elder care, the three-legged stool is elder law attorney, financial professional, and someone like myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Cross referral
Mm-hmm.
from a trusted advisor, and then we're the educators. This is how it works. This is how stuff works, and we're
Mm-hmm.
helping folks to understand it so that they can travel on to more decisions. I also like to network as a professional with what I call civilians. Yeah, let's do the Rotary Club because your business
There you go.
leaders are there, and you
Mm-hmm.
can be top of mind when something happens to someone in their family or their neighbor or someone in the church. And obviously, the faith communities are very strong. Not all are large
Mm-hmm.
enough to have pastors for the senior or rabbis for the senior, but they need to know about us. Not
Mm-hmm.
only as a referral source from that trusted advisor, but sometimes as a the caregiver pocketbook is there. There's some discretionary
Right.
funds to get somebody started on their caregiving world until we can get further in and understand how we can build out your caregiving pocketbook through
Mm-hmm.
use of organizations or liquidation of a home or one of the many ways to do things. I
Mm-hmm.
also like to network with people what I call 2 hours too far. I like to get to know people that are 2 hours from me because I'm not going 2 hours, but they're there, and I need to know about those professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Consequently, they're not coming in, to me, 2 hours. It's too far for them. It doesn't make sense. We
Right.
need to know each other. So the border people, if you will, of wherever your region may be. And then,
Right.
as you've already said, the specialist. If I'm an elder care oriented patient advocate, I need to know the medical billers. I need to know the Parkinson's specialist. I need to know the early diagnosis cancer. I need to
Mm-hmm.
know who does what, and we do that by networking within our own professional organizations. And
Right.
there's a and also ad hoc groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are plenty of clients. I don't feel like there is any competition between any of us, honestly, because we haven't even gotten in front of the right people yet, for the most part. And I'm going to be really blunt about that. Just from my experience in the last, really year being deep into patient advocacy, we haven't even. I think there's going to be a point, right? I envision a point where I crack the egg and a few of us start cracking that egg, and we're going to be having so much business and so many referrals. Because here's the other thing: I was actually traveling internationally, and I realized, even if somebody's got national health insurance, they still don't know anything about healthcare, right? And so I was in Spain. I'm hopefully taking a trip to Mexico to visit an expat community. Expat communities. There's another place people can focus in on, right? People and I'm a certified mediator and arbitrator, so I actually offer family mediation because let me just tell you, as a nurse, this number two barrier to care after just the healthcare system being a barrier in itself are family dynamics, failure to come
Oh,
to an agreement in a timely manner for that patient, and or the fighting that goes in, the five families, the blended families, the wives you didn't know about, the kids you didn't know about that start showing up at the bedside, all of that. So I want to really just leave with people, as we wind down this episode, about some food for thought for patient advocates, but also for patients. And whether you're 30 years old and thinking about this, I need to have a conversation with my parents about how they're going to be planning the future, and or whether you are 80 years old and very independent right now and want to make some plans, connect yourself and establish your relationship with a patient advocate now. I do not do emergencies. None of us do emergencies, or none of us should be. We need to onboard you properly and have a relationship, a professional relationship. I get crisis calls sometimes, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, because I've also been burned where it's been kind of a whack job of the family. Again, back to family dynamics. It's been like some family member who's actually not the decision maker at all. And there's things that we have to establish within ethical boundaries, standards, whether we're board certified or not. But we're running a business here, so establish that relationship early. Some end thoughts, Nancy, about this these topics about patient advocacy, about solo aging and planning.
I would say, that solo aging stuff is good for everybody because we're any of us can, if we're not solo, not partnered, we can become solo pretty quick. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it can happen when I walk out the door. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's all good information. Back to that micro board or village or circle of care idea and getting to choose who we designate, and getting to fill those seats if they're empty. That's good news for everybody. To
Mm-hmm.
establish those relationships now, change them if you
Yes.
need to.
Right.
But that's good. That's a good prescription for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And make sure, yeah, and talk about it with your friends. I mean, I have friends who are. I've never had my partner or even spouse be my decision maker. It's always been somebody I know, a friend who's in healthcare, who can be a little bit more objective, not be caught up in the emotions, and make the best decisions if need be, right? So talk about it, have those conversations. None of us are getting out alive, everybody. I just want to let it you know that. So it's okay. We can talk about the end of life, or the process of aging, the fourth quarter, third quarter, whatever, third trimester, whatever we want to call it, right? But thank you so much, Nancy. I really appreciate you taking your time, and I know you're under the weather, and so please, everybody, share this, like this, visit Nancy, get on her mailing list. I love your blog. I actually want to tell you yours is one of the very few I don't delete. I'm in a lot of mailing lists, but I listen to yours, I read yours through. I find it very engaging. Nancy's an amazing storyteller, and public speaking is definitely a great place for you, and an avenue to be spreading the gospel of patient advocacy. So thank you so much.
I appreciate the time to be here. This was great fun.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow wherever you're listening or watching this. Being the Space with Nurse Adrian RN and our guest, Nancy Ruffner.